I told my roommate in college who helped me find the name of this doctor, and that was it. I mean, my niece just called on the phone and said, "What are you doing?" And I told her, and she said, "I never knew this." So I never told anyone. It was 1967. I couldn't turn to my family even though there was a doctor in the family. And I came up through other students with the name of an abortionist in Union City, New Jersey. I had to get the money for the travel and for the doctor. I had to make my way to Union City, New Jersey by myself, and I had to go into his building by myself. And when I got in there, I joined other women. We were instructed to sit on the floor. The shades had to be drawn, and the lights had to be out. And when it was my turn, I had a DNC without anesthesia. I can remember the fear and the agony. I can remember the sound of the instruments to this day. And I can remember the extraordinary humanity of this doctor who risked his career every day to help women.
I graduated from college in 1958, and I was going to room with a friend. And on the way to Cambridge, she told me she was pregnant. It turned out that the name that we got could not have been a better name. There was no eye contact or acknowledgement of the other patients in either direction. And he came out with my friend in a fireman's carry over his shoulder, a white-haired, nice-looking man he was. And he dumped her on the couch in front of me, and her eyeballs were rolled back, and I thought, she's dead. How am I going to tell her parents where we are and what happened? And I was panicked. And she finally woke up, and they gave her antibiotics. The doctor gave her antibiotics and instructions of how to take care of herself, and we drove back to Massachusetts.
We knew Renee because we were both at Columbia School of Social Work. At one point during graduate school, I believe it was our second year of graduate school, Renee went to Puerto Rico and had an abortion.
She had to, get the money and fly down there. It must have been very lonely.
She returned from Puerto Rico and was not feeling well and went up to St. Luke's Hospital and asked for medical care, which she was denied because they found out that the medical care she was asking for was gynecological care, and after questioning her, discovered that she had had an abortion in Puerto Rico.
There was a small group of people. Larry Lader, you had Betty Friedan, Carol Greitzer, Fran Nathan, you certainly had Ruth Proskauer Smith in the middle of it, and a few others who sort of were not content having marginal and just chipping away at the margin kind of victories. They saw a moment in history that was really important.
In October, November of 1968, we had a meeting at the home of Ruth Proskauer Smith, and it was there that I met for the first time Connie Cook, who was an assemblywoman from Ithaca, New York. She was a Republican, and she shared my view that abortions should be made legal. And we drafted the bill. I checked with some of the people in the legislature. Everybody said, well, put it in. I mean, that bill isn't going to go anywhere. If we can't pass the more restrictive bill, how are you ever going to pass a bill that's going to legalize abortions? I stood in the back of the Senate chamber. It was maybe a 5-6 hour debate, one of the best debates I've ever listened to. It wasn't so much the politics that was driving it, but it was really the beliefs and the morality of the individual legislators. And it was a very powerful, effective debate, but it passed the Senate and then came to the Assembly.
I was in Albany and in the gallery because we knew the vote was coming up. It was very exciting. We knew that it was a very close vote in the Assembly.
When the tally was called, we were one vote short. And at that point, George Michaels did one of the most courageous things that I've ever seen a politician do.
My son, Jim, who, as you recall, Mr. Speaker, gave the invocation to this Assembly on February 4th, And he said, "Dad, for God's sake, don't let your vote be the vote that defeats this bill." I had hoped that this would never come to pass. But if I am going to have any peace in my family, ladies and gentlemen, I cannot go back to my family on the first Passover Seder and tell them that George Michaels defeated this bill. So, Mr. Speaker, I fully appreciate that this is the termination of my political career, but I cannot, in good conscience, stand here and thwart the obvious majority of this House, the members of whom I dearly love and for whom I have a great deal of affection. I'll probably never come back here again to share these things with you. But, Mr. Speaker, I must have some peace in my family. I therefore request you, Mr. Speaker, to change my negative vote to an affirmative vote.
With his vote changed, there was a tie which enabled the Speaker, Perry Duryea, to cast his vote for the bill, and the bill passed. And there was just pandemonium. We cheered. We were in disbelief.
It seemed like it was never going to happen, and we'd been working, and we'd spent so many years thinking about this and worrying about this issue, and now it was practically done, and it happened so fast it didn't even seem real.
We knew that Rockefeller had given every indication that he was going to sign the bill, which he did, and that it became law. I think that we were able to take this step in New York State, I think was noted by the Supreme Court.
There was something called the maternal death rate, which states collected these health statistics, and we watched it go right down after New York State made abortion legal.
In that sense, I think we paved the way for legalized abortion.
Women have always had abortions. The question is, do you want them to be legal and safe, or do you want them to be illegal and dangerous?
40 years later, it's incredible. We've just passed a national health plan that specifically carves out one form of medical treatment, not to be included: abortion.
So I ask my colleagues, Democrats and Republicans alike, let us stand together on principle of no public funding for abortion, no public funding for insurance policies that pay for abortion. Stand with us, protect our role, and let's keep current law.
I think the thread on our issue is so poignant to see what happened 40 years ago and then juxtapose it with what we just went through on health care reform. And what you see in both environments is that when it's easy, everybody's with you. When it's happy time, everyone's with you. But when the chips are down, it's really a small group of advocates and legislators working together to make it okay.
We have 4 generations, actually, of active people in NARAL, beginning with teenagers in a teenage program up through my age.
It is my generation's role to be guardians of what we have left in terms of the pillars of why Roe v. Wade passed.
There are a lot of people who want to get involved who wouldn't normally speak up.
I hope every person, mainly women and men who enjoy helping, would try to get together and speak about reproductive health.
The lesson we have to pass on to the next generations, that it was a temporary victory, that we didn't win it for all time, and that it's their job now. And we'll help in every way we can to take over and keep women safe.
As we see it right now, first we have to make people aware that there is a war, and then we'll recruit them to join the Army.